This is not happening somewhere where you can't visualize and understand it. This is happening in Los Angeles, somewhere that it just is unthinkable.
Let's speak to Caroline Faraday. She's a journalist. She's in LA County, lives about 10 miles from the Palisades fires. Good evening, Caroline. Thanks so much for being with us. Tell us a little bit about where you are and what you're experiencing.
So the area that I live in is the area that was impacted by the Woolsey fire in 2018, which you may remember was this big raging wildfire that started and burned through what was mostly sort of mountainous areas and canyons, but also included some communities, and in particular Malibu. This is different to that because this is homes, structures. We hear about wildfires, but this is unprecedented. And that's what I think people really need to understand about these fires that are burning now and are going to continue to burn. I keep getting messages from people saying, are you okay? No one's okay. Nobody here is okay. We all are holding our breath, thinking not only might another one start near us, but just, there are thousands of people who are displaced from their homes, separated from their pets, don't know if their homes are still standing, in entire communities gone. Town centre, the big, not just homes, but the supermarkets, the Starbucks on the corner, the sweet fish restaurant that's been there for 36 years on the Pacific Coast Highway. And there's nothing left.
So if we're kind of giving examples, and I hope you don't mind me asking to do this, but if you're talking about an area of London or, Wilmslow in Cheshire or a part of Brighton, what sort of scale are we talking about here? If we try and compare it to a UK example, can we get anywhere close when we try and imagine just how much destruction there is?
Well, there's three fires, really. Imagine sort of one starting in Bromley, if Bromley was on sea, I guess, and just taking out all of Bromley, the homes, the town centre, the glades, the lot, right? And then imagine another one across the other side of town, sort of happening...
Hackney area or something like that. Hackney or Walthamstow, somewhere in London.
Yeah, somewhere kind of sort of slightly fancy across town. So that one's raging. So the resources are then stretched to kind of cover that with Pasadena, which that area wouldn't normally be hit with these Santa Ana winds, which I'll talk a bit more about in a minute. But and then also we had another fire, right? Imagine it literally happening in like Covent Garden, and another fire, or sort of Regent's Park, perhaps catching fire, and then all of those homes around there. That's what happened last night. So thousands of people evacuated from around the Hollywood area. The Palisades fire is currently 17,234 acres. And when we talk about that acreage, often I'm talking about this and it covers a lot of sort of wildland or grasslands or trees or that kind of thing, or brush. That is people's homes. This is 1,000 structures that have been lost here. This place is decimated. The Eaton fire, which is what they're calling the one in Pasadena, that is at 10,600 acres. And again, that is a residential area. This is not like the fires that we have talked about in the past happening in Southern California. This is different. On top of that, of course, all of this smoke causing life-threatening air quality issues for those who may be at home or maybe are evacuated somewhere. So there's all sorts of other issues. A lot of people's power's out, thousands and thousands of people without power. All of Malibu have got their gas turned off. I cannot begin to even manage to explain the feeling it's of sort of holding your breath. I walked around my house this morning thinking, what happens if I don't come home to this house tonight? Like, what am I taking with me? Because that's a situation that these people who perhaps went to work and never got back to their homes, or had to leave in an urgent situation. People had to run from their cars in Pacific Palisades. This is like a fancy area, right? Where a lot of celebs
what that's
live.
like, Caroline, walking around your house.
Terrific.
thinking this might not be here when I get home, and what do I need to take with me if I'm heading out to work, heading off to school, college, whatever? What do I need to take with me because it might not be there when I get back?
I walked around my house trying to answer that question to myself this morning, and and I took photos of every single room and what was it, and because it's a reality that in the next couple of days maybe I can't get home and maybe I'll be in the same situation, and I'm counting my blessings. I really am. I'm looking at people who have literally lost everything and had to run for their lives. And this is not happening in some far off distant land. This is not happening somewhere where you can't visualize and understand it. This is happening in Los Angeles, somewhere that it just is unthinkable.
Goodness me. I mean, let's just talk about the Santa Ana winds that you mentioned as we try and explain. Look, you're not a weather expert, you're not a climate expert, but of course everyone will be trying to understand what is happening so that they can think about their own safety and think about it within the context of their community or their friends and family who might live nearby. So tell us what is going on there.
Right. So these Santa Ana winds are, if you sort of think about the way that LA is built on what was essentially desert, and then they managed to get some water into it and they built a city, 100 odd years ago. And then these Santa Ana winds happen when it's kind of tunnels up and the topography of the area, and it kind of channels through, and they happen, and they call them like the devil winds in LA, and that is when you see these fire conditions. Now couple that with the fact that there's been no rain in Los Angeles since May. I think it's something like May the 21st. So it's incredibly dry, and then these winds you can get. Normally the Santa Ana winds are a bit unpleasant. They have all sorts of things that people say they make them go crazy, or and they can also whip up these fire conditions. But the speed of these winds, it was absolutely terrifying on Tuesday night, and we were getting sort of 80 to 100 mile an hour gusts of wind, where you think, I don't know if I was literally thinking the doors on my house were coming in, because it was so strong, and you're hearing everything flying about outside. The power's going out because they have to turn the power out because they don't want something to spark or come down and create a fire. So they have these public safety shut-offs. But in all the time I've lived here 11 years, I've never known them as strong as this. And people that have lived here longest, their whole lives, say they've never known them like this. And they kind of channel down, and then they bring this kind of warm, very vicious, fast winds. So for these areas where these fires are burning, it's a bit like a blowtorch, just take a giant blowtorch coming through the area and just setting everything in its path alight, because you get a tiny spark and they cannot get a grip of it. On top of that, when they normally fight these fires, and I go in my reporting work, have been out with these firefighters, I've watched them training, I've been up in their helicopters, I know how good they are. They are the best in the world, and they are so brave, and the work that they're doing is incredible. But they're normally supported by air support, who come in, and when you talk about containment, that is about putting retardant around and maybe digging a trench and the things that they can normally do. They've not been able to do any of that because it's been so windy. They haven't been able to get retardant down. It's also a residential area. As you said, perhaps people were reluctant to leave their homes. People can get a little bit like, we get all these warnings, or people think they're going to defend their homes. And so there can be some complacency in other circumstances. I don't know if people could have got out quick enough. People were abandoning their cars and having to run for it.
I saw some footage. I mean, it must be so scary. Look, thank you for just painting a really simple, honest picture of it for us. It really helps us, especially when we are an audio medium. Some of the pictures are so dramatic, but you've really helped to tell the story tonight, and I really appreciate it, and I wish you all the best as well, and hope that you stay safe and that your home stays in one piece. Caroline Faraday, thanks Caroline, really appreciate it. She's in LA County at the moment, 10 miles from the Palisades fires.